Hey everybody, I am Matt Williamson and you are watching Pop Goes the 60s, and I'm going to do a request video here. I had just done a part 2 of the Beatles' best songs, and part 1 was one of my very first Beatle videos I did about 4 years ago. Finally got around to doing part 2, so that rendered basically the Beatles' top 25 best songs based on some pretty lengthy criteria I came up with. So people said, well, Matt, now you got to do the Beatles' worst songs. And this was a topic I didn't ever really want to do, just because it's been done so much before, and it's a little bit of a, you see people do these, and they always have to spend half the video apologizing that they're not ripping on these songs. But if you're going to pick, if you're going to rank, there's some going to be at the bottom. So when you do that with the Beatles, yeah, they've got some songs, some lesser quality songs. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do 25 of their worst songs. Usually, I typically don't call them the worst songs, but I say the ones you least likely want to hear, the ones you skip over the most. It's not like some of these are bad songs. It's just, if you compare them to themselves, you've got some really great material and some other ones that just don't hold up as well, which is to be expected. So first of all, let me give you some criteria, because I had criteria for great songs. You can have criteria for the worst songs. So here's the criteria briefly, 10 different pieces. So what makes a bad song? Well, a lack of a hook. So this is rock music, pop music. If you don't have a hook, that's going to probably limit its exposure anyway. That might be a good reason for it being a bad song. How about a banal lyric? Bad lyrics can kill a song. Weak melody. That's one that I pretty much pay most attention to, is whether the melody is strong or not, whether it holds my attention and I can't get it out of my head. Whether or not the song is too long, that's the fourth one. Is it too repetitive? That's the fifth one. Poor vocals, number 6. Number 7, poor instrumentation and or poor arrangement. Number 8, inappropriate production. 9, is it derivative? And 10, is it following tired trends? So those are my criteria for what makes a bad song, and any number of those in certain doses can be really irritating to the listener, and that's probably why you would say a song is bad. All right, so these songs, one thing I also want to say, the way I looked at these songs was as individual standalone songs. So you might have a song that's from an album that you really like, and it fits into that album well, but that can't be a criteria for the good song. This song has to stand alone. We're not judging albums, we're judging the song. So that's one of the things I did in this list. Okay, well, let's begin. First one, we're just going to get right to it here, and it's Maxwell's Silver Hammer. Now this song gets a lot of flack, and McCartney particularly gets flack from this, and a term that gets attached to this is called granny music. That's a term I don't like to use. Some people don't like to say Mark David Chapman. I don't like to say granny music, but we're going to bring it out here because it's what people use, and they use it to really rip on his whole body of work, which is a shame because the granny music stuff within the Beatles only really applies to 5 songs, and this is one of them. And the reason this was a bit, I would say, beyond the pale is how it was bad enough that it had a reputation within the band. This was a divisive song, and I don't think it's got a good hook. I don't like the melody. I think the song lyrics are childish, and I've never liked the arrangement much. I almost prefer that more rocked up version they did in Let It Be. It makes it less corny, I guess. So it is corny, so that's why I don't like it, and I think that's why a lot of other people are irritated by it as well. Next song, What Goes On. Ringo Starr's first writing credit on a Beatles track, co-written with Lennon McCartney, and what would it have sounded like without Lennon McCartney's input? I don't know. But this is a black eye on the Rubber Soul album. I think this song just doesn't hold up to those other songs at all because it's got a very weak melody. Ringo's not a good singer, so I don't think he does the song much justice. And it's boring. And I think oftentimes when I listen to it, I'm kind of waiting for the Lennon McCartney vocals to come in just to help it out a bit. But generally, this is a song I don't like to listen to. Number 3, When I Get Home, from A Hard Day's Night. Now this song often gets ridiculed as probably the worst song of the 13 songs on that album, mostly for the lyrics. The cows come home, when the cows come home, that lyric is, if you read the lyrics of the whole song, they're pretty inane. So this was a boilerplate track that Lennon was cranking out, and with a little more work, they could have probably made it into something better, but they didn't. Number 4, Babies in Black. John Lennon would rip on George Harrison for bringing a waltz to the Get Back Let It Be sessions, that being I Me Mine. Well, this is a waltz too, and it's just as ineffective. And I think one of the things I really dislike seeing is when they do this song live. It's a boring song, it's slow, it's mopey, and it has some highlights, but it's a song I never really cared for too much. Number 5, Oh Darling, another McCartney track from Abbey Road. This one is kind of a parody, so I give it a bit of a pass for that. However, I find that it's just overproduced and over slick. This 50s throwback is not my cup of tea. Therefore, I feel that's a slightly derivative from a past period. And I think McCartney is just going a little bit over the top of the vocal, which I think is his intention. But I wonder, is he really giving it to us straight? I don't know. Lennon always said he could have sang the song better. Maybe so, but it doesn't make the song better. Next one, Dig It. Now this song does not belong on a Beatle album. It was a complete ad-lib song, so I give them a little bit of leeway for that because it was made up on the spot. Wasn't meant to be on any album. This is a mistake of Phil Spector, and the Beatles were breaking up and they had no eye on quality control, so somehow that got in there. That might be the worst track on this list. Next one, You Like Me Too Much. George Harrison, one of his early songs. This song I find to be just a very poor lyric, and Harrison was getting started. He was early in his songwriting career, so we can see why it might be a little bit sketchy, and it is. And I just think that it's one of those that I don't skip it necessarily, but it doesn't bring joy to me at all. Number 8, Her Majesty. Here we have another bit of McCartney schlock in here, and I say that because it wasn't good enough to be in the medley, which is where it was intended, where it was placed originally, and it didn't fit, so it got tacked onto the end of the album, originally accidentally, but it's supposed to be a bit of a joke. I don't think it's funny, I don't think it's cute, and I think it mars the end of a perfect album. Number 9, Anytime at All. Another A Hard Day's Night track from Mr. Lennon. I know a lot of people like this song, but there is no worse instrumental break that they ever wrote than in this song. It's horrible. 10th song on this list here, The Ballad of John and Yoko. What's better than 2 Beatles on a track? 3 Beatles on a track. What's better than 3 Beatles on a track? 4 Beatles on a track. This song suffers instrumentally because you don't have Ringo and George on it. Paul's mushy drums just don't cut it. It's kind of a fun song, but it really is a B-side in my opinion. And this idea of cataloging or tracking the wedding of the Lennons, this doesn't sound very romantic to me. This sounds like they're on the run. It sounds anything but romantic. So it's got some fun parts in it, but generally speaking, I think it's a song that would have been much better had you had better players on it. Okay, I'm going to breeze through the next 15 rather quickly here, giving us 25. But those top 10 were ones I thought needed a little bit of discussion. This is a margarita, by the way. Warm day today and kind of a rough day, so I thought I'd go for the mango margarita. I usually do it straight, but I didn't have, all I had was a mango. I didn't have much lime. Okay, have to give you guys my recipe for margaritas someday. Okay, the next 15. 1963's Little Child. This song I always thought was kind of repetitive, and I just never liked it too much. It's okay. Next song, Blue Jay Way. When I listen to Blue Jay Way, I've always listened to it as a complete side one of Magical Mystery Tour. And it never bothered me when listening to it that way. But this is one of those songs over the years of not only me doing this job, but all my years as a Beatle fan, people would bring this up as a song they didn't like. And I understand why. It's repetitive. You know, he says don't be long like 20 times in the end. And it's too long. It's a dirge. And the production's very good, but I can see why people wouldn't like it. And as a standalone song, it would be judged more harshly than if you just take it as a part of side one of Magical Mystery Tour. Okay, the next 3 songs are all White Album songs. Rocky Raccoon, The Continuing Story of Bungalow Bill, and Don't Pass Me By. A Paul, a John, and a Ringo song. This is Ringo's first solo, first individually written song by the Beatles, a song he had around since 1963, apparently. Could never finish it. It wasn't one of those songs that came quick. Had to work on it. And the reason I'm grouping these three songs together is people forget that when the Beatles recorded the White Album, it wasn't because they had so many great songs that they wrote in India. It was because they wanted to get out of their contract, and they were contracted for titles. So the number of tracks, it wasn't the amount of albums, the amount of songs. So they knew damn well 30 songs got them closer to the end of that contract than 15 or 14. So that's why you have so many songs on this album. Frankly, they were frantically trying to get this thing done. And these three songs sound like demos. They could have stood with some more work. Now, obviously, the whole White Album is a very artistic statement, of very individual styles of music, and it works together. But individually, not so much. And those three songs, I think, are a good example of that. Okay, the next two songs, the two German versions, I Want to Hold Your Hand, She Loves You. Do these need to be done in any other language? No further explanation needed. Next song, All Together Now, a throwaway sing-along from the Pepper era that got put out to pasture in the Yellow Submarine soundtrack where it belongs. Okay, next two songs, also White Album, Revolution 9 and Good Night. Revolution 9 is by far the most controversial Beatles song and often tops the list of worst Beatles songs. It's not really a song though. It's an interesting track, and if you want to get more background on it, I did a lengthy hour-plus discussion with Anthony Rotuno on this very song, talking about how it was put together, and it's quite an amazing track actually when you dissect it. But just to listen to it for fun, that's why I typically always skip it. As a kid, my buddy Dan and I, in his basement in the summertime, when Revolution 9 came on, after about 45 seconds, we're like, oh, this is Revolution 9, time to hit the eject button. So we not only shit-canned that song, but the song that came after it, which was Good Night. Now, Good Night is intentionally schmaltzy, another one of the many parodies on the White Album. And Ringo, I don't know, near the end when he's whispering, good night, everybody, it's a bit cringy. And I was happy to eject that song as well. I don't think, it makes sense where it is and where it's placed to make the whole preceding 8 minutes even more absurd, which I think works. But just for listening purposes, it's not that pleasurable, either of the songs for me personally. Actually, with Good Night, I like the outtake on the box set that has the backing vocals, so the whole band is singing. I think that's pretty good. Next two songs, I'm going to group these together. Also White Album songs, Wild Honey Pie, Why Don't We Do It in the Road. These are snippet songs, very short. Wild Honey Pie is only 51 seconds, I believe. When Dan and I were listening to that song in the basement, it went by too fast for us to reject it. And it was kind of a humorous song for us, so we never disliked it. Why Don't We Do It in the Road? I know some people don't care for that one. I think it's a good song, but the fact that it's so short, I think helps it out. 4 minutes of that, I don't think would help it at all. But these are two songs that are irritating to some people, and they're just not fully developed. You don't have many Beatles on them. There's a lot of things we can say that don't work about those songs, and that's why I think they wind up on these lists. Next song, Old Brown Shoe. Kind of just a simple blues workout. I'm not impressed with it too much lyrically or melodically. That's where it really fails for me. Some good playing though. Next song, Dig a Pony, another waltz from Mr. Lennon here. So Dig a Pony is a song that a lot of people bring up that they don't like. I've always really liked this song. I don't think it's a bad song with the exception of the lyrics. I think the lyrics are nonsense lyrics, and Lennon runs into some trouble when he goes this direction with some of his songs. He leaves himself open to get ridiculed for his lyrics, and I think this song is one of them. Finally, we have P.S. I Love You, one of the very early tracks, B-side of their first single, not very complex, so that's an easy one to rail on, and one that I don't listen to a whole lot either. I used to more so, but I've kind of outgrown it a bit. So that's 25 songs. So let me just give you, I forgot to mention, I kept out the cover songs. The reason I did that is because when I rank Beatles songs for their greatness, it has a lot to do with the originality of the song. So the Beatles were the masters at writing their own material. The covers to me are in a separate category. So let me just give you 10 of what I think are the ones I don't like to listen to and I typically skip over. Number one, this is the easiest one of all time, Maggie May. Another mistake from the Let It Be album that should never have been released by the Beatles. And again, just a matter of poor quality control at that time in their career. Number two, Mr. Moonlight. This one I see probably more than any other song other than Revolution 9 as being one of the most hated Beatles songs. And a lot of people like it. They cite Lennon's vocal being passionate. I'm not that big on his vocal. I think he's overdoing it. And the question is he taking the piss out of himself? Or is he giving it to us straight? Well, by the time you get to the instrumental bridge with that cheeseball organ, I don't see how you can say this song is a straight song. I don't like it. I don't like anything about it, really. And Lennon's vocal just doesn't do it for me. This is a time period, 64, 65. I just don't think the Beatles should have been doing any covers. They did A Hard Day's Night, all original songs. I think they graduated, and any cover after that album to me sounds remedial. It sounds like a step backwards. So that's another reason why I'm not a fan of Mr. Moonlight. Okay, next two songs, take your pick. Which one is worse, Honey Don't or Matchbox? We got two Ringo lead vocals that he just does not deliver well. Some songs he can sing well, so some covers are better than others based on how he can handle it vocally. These two, I think, are missteps. Dizzy Miss Lizzy, well, that would be a repetitive guitar riff that I think is marginal at best. The song, I think it's not that long of a song, but it sure feels long to me. Next song, the very wimpy Devil in Her Heart. Now, George Harrison had done all kinds of different cover songs. It's too bad he didn't do like Three Cool Cats. That's the song I'm thinking of. That's the song I really like. Anyway, Devil in Her Heart I always just found very wimpy. It's not a ballad, it's not a rocker. Doesn't fit in very well. Next two songs I'm going to pick on are the Chuck Berry songs, Rock and Roll Music and Roll Over Beethoven. I just don't like their covers of Chuck Berry when Berry does them better. The beauty of some of the Beatles' best covers, Twist and Shout, Long Tall Sally, is the Beatles do better covers. I don't think they do that with Berry songs. And particularly on Roll Over Beethoven, I think Harrison's intro guitar lick there, I think he misses it. Okay, we got another Ringo lead vocal here with Act Naturally. This is not too bad, but again, this is 65, and I just think they have graduated from doing covers, so those always irk me, and it's just a lack of originality, I think, on that song. And finally, we have the 10th song here, A Taste of Honey. Now, this song is a song that I like, but unfortunately, we get a very bad vocal from Paul McCartney, and that's because they were cranking through the whole album in one day, and there are a couple vocal passages where their vocals are tired, and this song is one of them. So unfortunately, that made the list. All right, well, that gives you actually 35 songs of their worst songs. I'm sure everybody's got ideas of their own, so I have a survey for you to partake in to list your 10 worst Beatles songs and then 2 additional songs that are covers that you think are their worst songs. So I'd like to get more of a consensus, and you can pick whatever songs you want. If you have any criteria to list, I would assume it's going to be part of some of the criteria I list. You may have criteria of your own. Please include that along as well. And let's see what we can come up with here, because it's always interesting to hear what people don't like. Because every time I talk about a song on this channel that I call weak or lacking or bad, there's always somebody that loves it. And I don't disagree with their love for it, but you know how these songs, they hit some people certain ways for certain reasons. So there's always got to be a reason. And the Beatles aren't perfect. So out of their 250 songs, they're going to have some songs that are going to kind of filter to the bottom. And for me, these are the ones that do. Thanks for watching this video on what are maybe the Beatles, some of their worst songs. A title I don't really like, call it what you will. songs you skip over the most, least desirable songs, whatever you want to call it. Every artist has them. These are necessary evils. So I make no apologies for any of these choices at all. It's just how it is. The Beatles do have, when I did this list, I have this in a spreadsheet. And so I've got the top 25, I got the bottom 25, but in that middle, there's like 200 songs. So I'm finding that middle 200, there's a lot of similarity in those middle songs in terms of quality or lack of quality, however you want to look at it. It's amazing how good their work is. That some of those songs in the middle or toward the bottom maybe would be another artist's really fine songs. So that's one of the great things about the Beatles, and that's what makes this exercise so hard, is they have so much good material, and even their poor material, their lacking material, has wonderful things in them as well. So make sure to check out the survey, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. We'll go over the results and see where everybody's at. We'll see what other songs made the list that I didn't have here, and let's have a little fun with it. So I thank you for watching. Pop Goes the 60s.